officials in the country's economic capital, Douala, provide temporary solutions to the problems faced by commuters in Yala. On the outskirts of the country's economic capital, in this newscast, we take a look at the ordeals of local inhabitants, especially road users. In this edition of the news, how beneficial is the China-African Summit taking place in Beijing, China, to Cameroon? And experts from a Central African sub-region is going to be telling us more on that in this edition of the news. They converge on the economic capital, Douala. Today, also in this newscast, we take a look at the extreme bad state of roads in some parts of the Mongo division of the littoral region of Cameroon. We shall be right back with the details. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome you to join us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Rehabilitation works have started on the stretch of road that is leading to Yasan Japoma Frunyala, that is in the economic capital, Douala, precisely in the Douala-Free subdivision. The road, which has been the subject of several reports on Equinoxe television, was considered by several users as a veritable nightmare. Local inhabitants have also complained that it has so far affected their businesses negatively. A report from Armstrong Sander was there. He tells us more in the following report.
Water on a modest standing water.
A good number of vehicles who dare ply the stretch of road leading to Japuma and Yasa through Nyala in Douala-Free subdivision end up in this state. Heavy-duty trucks, minibuses as well as motorbikes all suffer the same fate. The extremely bad state of the road has been a nightmare to users over a considerable period.
You can see for yourself how an entire neighborhood has been cut off from the rest of the city. I doubt if those so-called authorities ply this road. This is bad. Even the road that leads to my village in Yokaduma is not this bad.
The third surface that used to be here some years ago is inexistent. Users go through hell plying this stretch of road every day. Drivers and riders fight over the limited available space with pedestrians. Some of them, out of pity for pedestrians or professional consciousness, are obliged to baptize their vehicles in the pool of standing water. Some road users prefer to trek across what they qualify as a nightmare. Locals also complain of bad business and frequent accidents on this stretch. The incessant cry of the population of Nala and users of this stretch of road that leads on one end to the Japuma Sports Complex, one of the sites to host a poll of the AFCON 2019 Jamboree, pushed the Douala City Council to respond with what some have qualified as a temporary rehabilitation project. Trucks, bulldozers and compactors of the Douala City Council could be seen working on the laterite that was brought in to fill the potholes. Some inhabitants of Nyala and users of this unbearable stretch of road say the rehabilitation works, which began over the weekend, is not well done. They complain of poor drainage system, which according to them will warrant the stagnation of water, consequently creating another problem.
And how permanent is that project? Only time is going to tell. We now talk about pupils and students in Kongsamba of the Mongo division littoral region of Cameroon that have to brave broken and muddy roads to get to their schools. Parents and guardians say that the children are victims of accidents on daily basis and late coming due to the terrible state of the road in that part of the littoral region of Cameroon. Details with Innocent Azi.
These degraded roads connect various schools in the town of Kongsamba in the Mongo division. Some of the schools these rugged and muddy seasonal roads link include Government High School Lonako, Government Bilingual High School Kongsamba, Government Bilingual Nursery School Ekelko, among others. Worst of it all is the muddy and slippery nature of the seasonal roads used by pupils and students. Getting to school in the rainy season is problematic.
Les enfants tombent tous les...
Ce que font ces élèves, c'est quoi?
Some are compelled to take 2 pairs of shoes along to manage the situation.
Quand ils arrivent donc au goudron, ils enlèvent donc la deuxième paire de chaussures.
Guardians and parents talk of negative consequences the poor roads have had on the education of their children.
C'est comme ça donc qu'ils n'étudient pas dans de bonnes conditions.
Avec les tenues, ils sont en fait toujours sales.
Une fille qui composait le bac est tombée.
A lady writing the baccalaureate examination fell in the mud and was compelled to return home and change.
Encore les cours qu'on est en train de donner parce qu'elle avait déjà raté beaucoup de choses et elle sortait loin.
Elsewhere, learners are compelled to trek to school, especially when it rains. So because vehicles and motorbikes cannot circulate flexibly, thus accident risk level elevates.
C'est très accidentel. Au lieu d'arriver jusqu'à destination, ils descendent tout en bas pour continuer à pied.
Inhabitants criticizing the roads plead on authorities in charge to have them fixed for the sake of pupils and students who have begun the 2018-2019 school year, such that the school is free. These roads have been like this for several years.
Before we take a look at the bad state of roads in the Douala Free subdivision, precisely at Antrim B, that actually interrupted classes, that was yesterday on the day 1 of school resumption for the 2018-2019 school year, we continue with a series of reports in Loom of the Mungo division of Cameroon to talk about back to school on the first day in Loom of the littoral region that saw early punishment of some students who were refused chanting the national anthem. Meanwhile, some school administrators condemned the assorted attires put on by some of the students. Some parents actually lamented on the decision that was taken yesterday. Innocent Azza once again tells us more in the following report.
It was an effective kickoff of the 2018-2019 academic year in most schools in Loum, Mungo division of the littoral region.
Les jupes s'arrêtent à mi-mollet, plus de jupes qui balaient le sol.
But early punishments were given to some students at Government Bilingual High School, Grand Souza. This student was punished because she resisted to chant the national anthem of the Republic of Cameroon. She says her religion instructs that only God should be honored, nothing else.
And I told them that the school is secular. Nobody has a right to refuse singing the national anthem because there is nothing like religious denominations in this school as a public school.
Punctuality, discipline, and good conduct are components that students are expected to nurture as insecurity looms around due to the Anglophone crisis.
Considering the crisis situation in Cameroon nowadays, we have warned them to be very careful the way they behave and how they move about, because when they leave their homes to come to school, let them know just the home, from house to school and from school back to their homes.
Unlike new students in Government Technical School Loum, a Form 1 student in GBHS Grand Souza, delighted to be in secondary school, is also ready to excel.
The school is beautiful. The school is very different from the primary school, so I'm happy. I will work hard so that I will pass my exam and go to Form 2.
In Government Technical School Loum, school administrators fume at the attitude of some students appearing on day 1 on campus in assorted wear.
Nous sommes surpris de constater que les enfants arrivent en civil le premier jour.
They describe such an act.
Mais celui qui n'a pas la tenue de fréquentation, qui ne vienne pas.
Monday, even as day of grace.
La respecter.
On the other hand, registering students is extremely cumbersome and complicated, as explained by parents who are not familiar with the
fait d'aller les revenir, on nous donne le papier.
The order to go to the points to pay fees and return on campus to issue seat for validation before the child is considered registered is we spend double and get exhausted.
C'est ça qui jusqu'à le matin nous sommes ici, nous sommes debout.
However, school authorities will get used to the new registration system in a so believe all odds will be fair.
Les ambassoniens viendront détruire
Ça ne doit pas régner ici à Grand Souza.
And here in the economic capital, Douala, classes did not resume in some institutions of the Douala Free Subdivision. At Entry B, that is in the Douala Free Subdivision, the bad state of the road kept pupils at home. That was precisely yesterday on the day one of the Back to School 2018-2019. We can see how benches were practically empty in some of the institutions that were visited, though the teachers were present to teach out lessons. Pupils were simply not present on campus. We can see how the road at Entry B in the Douala Free Subdivision was as bad. It was practically difficult for motorbikes and even vehicles to move on that stretch of road. Let us now have an excerpt of one of the teachers. She's going to be recounting their difficulties of yesterday. She was speaking to Equinoxe television. Take a listen.
Here we are having a very serious problem with our roads. The cause of this road is due to the poor drainage pattern that we have here in village. The road is really very bad, as you can see. You see water is standing everywhere. Gutters are not well fixed, they are not well opened. Water cannot circulate, and the roads, the pattern of the road is not well organized. The things that the government pretend to have done, like fix the road, put ground, it has become very muddy. So we can't really tell that we are living in an environment where people can go to school.
That is a road user rather there in the Douala Free Subdivision talking about the extreme bad state of the road. And just to know that the situation was not any different in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon today. That is the tour Back to School 2018-2019. The governor of the Southwest region of Cameroon, Bernard Okalia Bilai, actually visited some academic institutions, but our reporter in the Southwest region has made us to understand that very few students were on campus on day 2 of Back to School. Many had the impression that the closed doors as well as institutions and business premises yesterday in the two Anglophone regions was as a result of the ghost town, but the situation was not any different today, the second day of Back to School 2018-2019. We, of course, will be telling you more on that in our subsequent newscast. Now, here in the country's economic capital, Douala, we talk about the meeting that is ongoing in Beijing, the 2018 African-China Summit that opened in Beijing, that was yesterday, which continued today. In attendance is Cameroon's President Paul Biya, that is representing the country. He is equally attending alongside other African leaders. President Paul Biya was the first African president to arrive Beijing. That was yesterday during the African-China Summit. In the summit, the Chinese president said that African countries should look at China for their credible partner that would foster their development without political strings attached. The president, Xi Jinping, further said that China, being the continent with the largest, or that is going to be bringing development, particularly road and other infrastructural development within the African continent. China is so far promising to disburse the whopping sum of $60 billion to sponsor African infrastructure. And here in the economic capital, Douala, experts and economic stakeholders from countries of CEMAC, African sub-region, are evaluating the implementation of the economic and financial reforms adopted by some heads of states in the year 2016. The reforms are designed to enhance Africa's development drive. The implementation phase is being scrutinized at the 8th meeting, which began in the economic capital, Douala. Today, our reporter Babila Jonathan with two participants at the meeting in Douala. They spoke to him in the following excerpt. We're having indications that we, of course, will be having that in the course of this newscast. But before we come to that, we take the reactions of some experts during the meeting which took place in Douala today. They were looking at the impact of the African-China Summit on Cameroon. How is it going to be beneficial to the country of President Paul Biya? Babla Jonathan tells us more in the following report.
We had 21 measures, and up to today, I can tell you that around 16 measures are implemented. 16 measures. And basically the problem is the problem of creating the same evaluation region. We have agreed on that. Now, each country, and to see what we have to do and the remaining. And I think that on Saturday, I will be in the position to better explain and give you the statistics and the document on that. Priorities is budget, fighting against corruption, diversification of our economy, and reform in the...
We are now to evaluate the 21 measures that will be that have been taken by our head of state during the cabinet meeting in 2016 in Yaoundé. Those measures was to give some correction on economic reform, to just to have our economy be more resilient and more strong face to the economic crisis. Now we have to evaluate those measures, and that the measures that have already been taken or implemented have not produced some result.
That is the outcome of the meeting that took place here in the economic capital, Douala. We, of course, will be coming back to the reaction of other experts in our subsequent newscast. Just to note that the national president and presidential candidate of the NCMC political party, that is the presidential candidate of the National Movement for Cameroon Citizen, Prophet Franklin, with media men and women in Bonaberi of the Douala 4 municipality to present his manifesto to journalists. That was today. It took place this afternoon in Bonaberi, and some of his key points or his major reforms are, he says that he is going to be transforming the form of the state into a federal system of government, step up energy supply through solar system. He's equally going to be restructuring the educational system in Cameroon and professionalize education through the identification of talent, especially at tender ages in the country. He is equally going to be transforming Cameroonian prisons into moral and vocational training centers. We of so that as well in our subsequent newscast. There, bringing us to the end of this edition of the Prime Time newscast on Equinoxe Television. Viewers, so thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.